just a quick one before we start this week's episode. We're actually airing this episode out of order, so essentially this was recorded after we'd recorded episodes on Fear of the Dark and the X Factor, but we figured as it's already been a while since the Mandrake Project came out, we wanted to get this one live ahead of going into those albums. So you may hear us refer to some of our discussions around Fear of the Dark and the X Factor, but don't worry, you've not missed any episodes, and in the next edition, normal service will resume anyway. Right, clear? Makes sense? Great. Roll the intro.
Hello and welcome to Maiden Voyages, a podcast where we usually chronicle the entire discography of Iron Maiden in order, but not today. It's a bonus pod.
It's a bonus.
It's a bonus, although we say a bonus, it's not going to be on extra to your usual scheduled podcast.
Oh, this is just taking the place of a normal episode, really. Also, bonus is subjective. Maybe you don't want this.
Look, it's free, right? So every episode is a bonus, really.
Yeah.
Okay. And the reason it's a bonus is because we're talking about your friend and mine, Bruce Dickinson.
And we can actually, I was about to say, well, he's not our friend. We've never met him, but we have met him.
We have met him, yes. So if you're a fan of the Tattooed Millionaire podcast we did, it's another Bruce pod.
Yeah.
Maiden Dickinson. Bruce's Voyages.
Should
we introduce ourselves?
Please.
So I'm Blev, an historian of sorts, and I'm a Bruce Dickinson. Oh dear. I'm a Bruce Dickinson, I was going to say stalker, but I don't want that on the record.
No.
I'm a Bruce Dickinson admirer. I admire Bruce.
Okay.
A Bruce Dickinson fancier, like a pigeon fancier.
Okay. So what, you just kind of train Bruce Dickinson to...
Well, yeah, it's like a hobby. I just
live
take
in
an interest
cages?
in Bruce Dickinson, the life and times of, just,
Okay. I'm a Bruce Dickinson circus ringmaster.
Nice. And you're Sam.
And I'm Sam, a music journalist of sorts.
So there's been a lot of Bruce Dickinson stuff going on lately in our personal lives.
Yes.
And in the world of Bruce Dickinson. Shall we start with...
Well, I guess the ultimate thing is, and I guess part of the reason why we're doing this episode is Bruce Dickinson has released his first solo album in 18 years?
Since 2006.
Okay,
yes.
so 18 years.
Tyranny of Souls came out, yeah.
So the Mandrake Project came out was it the start of March?
I believe so, yeah.
How long has it been out?
2 weeks ago?
Yeah,
4 weeks?
2 or 3 weeks ago. So it's his first solo album in 18 years. It sees him join up with Roy Zed, once again, who's been a frequent collaborator on most of his solo albums, everything except Tattooed Millionaire and Skunkworks, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, because of that, there's a lot of noise around Bruce. He's going to be doing a tour across the UK and across most of the world by the looks of it.
Yeah, we're going to that as well.
But we're going to the Swansea gig, which we've mentioned multiple times before. And then in support of that album as well, for the launch period, I guess, he also did a signing tour across the UK where we had the opportunity to meet him and fanboy out.
Yeah.
I think is probably the fairest way to describe it.
I think that is... I think that's putting it mildly in my case, fanboy out.
Yeah.
So should we have a little talk about the signing? Then we're going to do a review of the album. And then maybe we'll have a little what we're hoping for from the tour, because there's been a few developments on the touring front as well.
I think that sounds like a sensible approach.
So let's paint an oral picture for the listener, Sam.
Okay.
It's Thursday night. We're tired.
It's Thursday night and we're going to a midnight signing session at HMV Cardiff, which we both had thought was on the Friday night.
Because we don't understand how midnight work.
And even though the HMV website had been very clear it was Thursday night, we're both idiots.
Yes, because it was the 1st of March, wasn't it?
It was the 1st of March.
And we took midnight the 1st of March, because Friday was the 1st of March, St. David's Day, Wales. So we presumed it was the Friday.
Yeah.
Then it was actually thanks to, I think we could say, our good friends at Fuel Rock Bar in Cardiff.
Yes.
Our good friends at Fuel, who put out a social media post about it, that we realised, oh, that's Thursday.
I mean, quite
And then,
genuinely.
I've got work on Friday.
Yeah.
Oh.
Quite genuinely, if Fuel Rock Club hadn't put out that post on their social media, we might have ended up showing up to HMV Cardiff at midnight on Friday with no one there.
I'd invested a lot in meeting Bruce Dickinson.
Yeah. But anyway, so that didn't happen. So it's a Thursday night. The signing session officially isn't until midnight, which is, as you say, quite late on the school night, especially for two mid-30s men with jobs. So what more sensible thing to do than sink a couple of pints at aforementioned Fuel Rock Club? Okay, so we are at Cardiff's premier rock joint, Fuel, prepping to meet Bruce Dickinson at HMV. We're not being paid to say that. Completely unprompted. Bledd, how do you feel about meeting Bruce Dickinson?
I'm excited. I'm nervous. I'm
Sweating profusely.
Drinking enough Trooper to have a bit of Dutch courage to trying to think what I'm going to say to the big B man.
This is not meant to be an advertisement for them, but it definitely sounds like sponsored content.
This is the reason they don't sponsor us, Sam. They know we do it for free anyway.
Yeah, that's fair.
This is why Rob, who we had the pleasure of meeting at Fuel, lovely
Yes.
chap, listener of the pod.
Good egg.
Big shout out to Rob. Yeah, but this is why he's not sponsoring us, because we keep saying nice things about his bar for nothing.
It's true. It's true. Anyway, we had a few delicious troopers and some good chats with Rob, and then we made our way over to HMV Cardiff, where there was already a line brewing. This is about 10:30ish,
30ish, yeah.
yeah, something like that. Both maybe slightly more half cut than we should be at that point.
Yeah.
And now we're in the queue, waiting to meet Bruce Dickinson. Blevin, tell me, how do you feel?
How do I feel, Sam? I feel overawed. I feel nervous.
Overawed.
Overawed. Like too much awe. I appreciate
okay.
my pronunciation's not doing me any favours here. I have had 4
We have had 4 pints.
at this point, right? So bear with me. I'm feeling overawed. I'm feeling nervous, but I'm feeling excited, and I'm feeling. I'm trying to prep what my chat's going to be.
So we had a discussion in the pub earlier about what Blevin would say to Bruce Dickinson, and Blevin was worried that he would be overwhelmed by several decades worth of media enterprise and unable to say anything.
Yeah, this is the genuine worry. I think I'm going in with Bruce. I first saw You've Maiden in 2003. Down the road from here in Cardiff.
Wait, you're not going to say hello?
No, I'm not going to say hello. I'm just going in with that, and just seeing where it goes from there.
Wow, you heard it here first, folks. Yeah, then, I mean, essentially, you queue, you go in, you get given the new album. I mean, you've pre-ordered it, so you've been given something you've already purchased.
I got upsold the t-shirt.
Oh, yeah, you got upsold the t-shirt.
By this point, I was so giddy of excitement. The very nice young man behind the counter was like, "We've got t-shirts as well." I was like, "Yes." So have you looked at the designs? No, just, yeah, cool.
I was not upsold the t-shirt, let the record show.
Quite a nice t-shirt.
I'm sure it is.
It's got the kind of cool Mandrake M.
The big graffiti M thing. Fair enough. No judgment here.
I've already worn it, I'd say about 4 times.
That's good going for like 3 weeks.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
I hope you've washed it in between.
Oh, mostly, sure.
So anyway, we get in the queue.
And HMV, just to sort of, again, paint an oral picture, is bedazzled, I don't know what the word is, bedecked with sort of Bruce Dickinson LPs. It's almost like a little Bruce Dickinson museum, isn't it? Everywhere you turn.
Actually, yeah, that's a really good point.
I've never seen so many copies of Balls to Picasso and vinyl.
Yeah, it's vinyl copies of Balls to Picasso, Accident of Birth. Pretty much most of Bruce's solo albums are really weirdly well represented. Although technically I was in said HMV the other day and they're all still there. I don't think that stock's selling through anytime.
Well, I'm going to wait. There's going to be some sales stickers coming on soon. Then
you'll go clean up
on vinyl. Yeah,
but yeah, like all credit to HMV, it was very much. You know, it felt like a celebration. It had a really upbeat vibe.
And seeing as they didn't really give you much information about what to expect at all,
no,
it's boring old man point. But it was very well organised and civilised, and was just quite a.
And it was efficient.
It was efficient, yeah. Well, that's important when you want to go home and go to bed, yeah.
Yeah, and also by the time we left, I was busting for the toilet. So yeah, it was good. It was efficient. Like you say, we weren't told very much about it. We knew it was a signing session. We both kind of presumed realistically it would be 10 seconds with Bruce and he would sign your copy of the Mandrake Project and probably nothing else. But then as we got nearer and nearer to Bruce in the queue, we realized that actually lots of people were giving him other things to sign. Maybe most impressively was the woman in front of us who got her leg signed by Bruce Dickinson next to a tattoo that she already had of Bruce.
And I don't know about you, but just because they sort of usher you upstairs to join the sort of queue and you can see the desk. When he walks in and you see him in the room, outside of the context of not being on a stage, that was a real moment for me. I don't know why you'd almost be surprised to see Bruce Dickinson at a Bruce Dickinson signing event.
Yeah.
But it's that moment where you go, Christ, it's Bruce Dickinson just over there having a chat with the man who works at HMV.
Blevin, you were mere moments away, maybe minutes away from meeting Bruce Dickinson. Yeah. How do you feel?
The initial excitement is dissipating into a kind of nervous anxiety panic.
Nice, strong.
So a little bit intimidated, perhaps.
He's just a human.
Yeah, but he's not, is he?
No, he's superhuman.
No, he's not. He's not just a human, Sam. So get that thought out of your head right now. You are in the presence of God.
It's quite interesting because, I mean, he's a very unassuming looking dude, right?
Yeah, so I think if you go now on the @Maiden Pod on X, there's the photos, and I think he got his beanie on.
He's got his beanie on. I think maybe like a hoodie or something.
Yeah, I mean, he sort of looks like like outside of his maiden garb, just quite a slightly.
You wouldn't think
almost scruffy middle come elderly man sort of.
Yeah, you wouldn't think this is the singer of one of the biggest heavy metal bands that have ever existed. He's very unassuming. He's very casual.
I can't imagine David Lee Roth turning up to a signing, wearing a beanie and just like a hoodie.
I can't really imagine David Lee Roth turning up to a signing.
No.
So, but yeah,
just doing a big scissor kick and a.
Yeah, that's fair. But you're right. There's something very surreal about seeing someone of that, I guess, stature in the flesh outside of a live gig context. I mean, because I'm a massive nerd, I've been to quite a few signing sessions before. And then through my pretend journalism, I've had the chance to interview a few people before. So it's something you do get used to a bit, but it is. I definitely noticed it with Bruce Dickinson. It's like, oh, holy shit, it's Bruce Dickinson.
This is big league.
Yeah, this is big league. Yeah. This is not. Well, I'm not going to name drop anyone because that'd be really rude. but you know, it's a different.
This isn't Chris from Aylstorm. This is like an actual.
I didn't interview Chris from Aylstorm.
I appreciate that.
Although I haven't met him, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I mean, I used his name because he's a douche, so it's fine.
Yeah, fair. So anyway, we're in the queue. We see people getting other things signed. On the off chance that was going to happen, I brought a bunch of things with me. So I've got several Maiden albums with me and a couple of his solo albums. I didn't want to be too cheeky, so in the end, I got him to sign Number of the Beast and Seventh Son and the Mandrake Project. It was all a very awkward but pleasant, cordial interaction, like all these things are. I asked him how it's going. He said, yeah, all right. I said, I'm really looking forward to listening to the album and seeing you live. I was like, cheers, mate.
Cheers, mate. Yeah.
Shook his hand. He signed my things. Walked away.
I got him to sign my copy of What Does This Button Do? Which is very nice. But yeah, because you've been to a lot of signings. When I started going to festivals and I realised, they're signing tents, I went a bit mad for signings. But very quickly I went, they're always a bit awkward. And I haven't been to a signing in a very long time because I don't really tend to bother these days. Yeah, I don't really tend to bother these days because you're right. They are a very weird, awkward thing. And every once in a while, they can feel like a really sort of, for lack of a better word, sort of a magical thing. But more often than not, it's just, especially if you're a socially awkward person yourself, which I most certainly am,
they're pretty weird.
Well, yeah, but they are weird. I think even if you're really confident, I don't really know what you can say. But having said that, the Bruce one for me was really magical.
Yeah.
And that's despite the fact that we didn't tell him about the pod.
No, I think we both kind of lost the nerve to do that.
I mean,
Bruce,
to be fair,
Bruce, we do a podcast where we sometimes read about you and your friends. But we love your music.
actually, we're usually really nice about you.
You come out pretty well.
Yeah.
Steve, on the other hand.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I thought in the queue, I'm going to tell him about the first time I saw Iron Maiden. I was going to say, Bruce, I love you.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I saw Iron Maiden. But actually, when he's there and he's like, hiya, and you're like, hello. Like, all I basically said to him was, oh, thanks. I really appreciate this, Bruce. He's like, no worries, mate. I was like, no, honestly, thank you so much. He's like, yeah, no, yes, it's fine. Thanks. I enjoy it. I was like, yeah, thank you.
Well, particularly for you, who has idolised Iron Maiden since you were, what, 12, 13?
Yeah. It was, and my whole life has been, I say my whole life, as an adult, I don't have, in my marital bedroom, there aren't posters of Bruce Dickinson on the wall now, sadly. But there were for a long time, just surrounded by images of, as you can attest to.
Yeah, your teenage bedroom was literally posters of Iron Maiden, posters of individual members of Iron Maiden, and then like a bunch of other metal posters. But your walls were plastered with Bruce's visage.
The face plastered with Bruce. Oh, dear me.
Yeah. But you know that,
yes,
like
I was surrounded by him.
It was a big deal for you.
Yeah,
and
it was a big deal.
And not to undersell it was a big deal for me. It was a really bloody cool experience.
And the fact because we weren't sure if there'd be photos or anything like that.
Yeah.
But again, that was super efficient. There was like staff from HMV who were like, "Do you have a phone?" And I was just like, "Yeah, get your mitts off my phone." And they're like, "No, take a picture." It's like, "Oh, this is awesome, thank you."
So that's the only signing session I've ever been to where that's happened. And like, huge credit to HMV. That makes so much sense to have someone on hand who will just take a picture with your phone for you.
Yeah.
Whereas all other signing sessions I've been at, it's always like you kind of asking, can I get a selfie or get a picture with you? And then someone having to take that picture for you. And it's all kinds of super awkward. So I've got a couple of photos of me with people like, I don't know, Warrell Dane from Nevermore, who to be fair was very accommodating and really nice. Rest in peace. Or like Ginger from the Wild Hearts. But I had to get people to take these pictures.
Yeah.
It's awkward as hell. So yeah, having someone in the signing session managing that whole process, it's great.
And it's like, there's a photo of me and Bruce Dickinson.
Exactly.
That's there forever now. And you just think, wow, the whole next day I was just buzzing. Like,
I mean, the next day I was mildly hungover.
Really tired, and hangover.
Buzzing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a really fun
Yeah.
experience. I'm really glad we got to do that.
Well, Blevin, we've both just met Bruce Dickinson, who has graciously signed a lot of our stuff.
Yeah, more stuff than we should have.
Yeah, we might have been a bit cheeky. How do you feel?
I feel generally quite overwhelmed, actually. You can feel my voice going a little bit here.
So this is like 13-year-old Blevin's dream.
This is 13-year-old Blevin, like from being resuscitated from a coma, and just rediscovering my inner child. And it's genuinely quite moving, Sam.
Well,
All I'm saying was just sort of how. Thank you so much for giving me 30 seconds of your time. That's pretty much all I had to say to the man, but that felt like enough,
Nice. What a time to be alive.
Happy days.
I think what's probably coming across here is like our inner child very much came out.
And he was really sweet and unassuming, just so friendly and warm. As an aside, there's no reason for this to be here. Do you know what my least satisfying signing was?
Ooh, no.
In about 2007, when I was at the last ever Earthshaker Festival in Germany, Creator did a signing.
Yeah.
And I love Creator.
Yep.
Titans of German thrash. They were so miserable.
Oh, really?
Mille Petrosa did not look up at me.
Yeah.
I mean, admittedly, he was probably it was basically a festival full of Germans in Germany. And I was like, hello. And he was like, but he honestly, he did not look up from the desk. I remember just signing the little poster card he'd been given, just passing it along to the next member of Creator and going, okay.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, I imagine if you're a musician, doing the signing sessions must be sort of a double-edged sword. Like, it must be great to meet lots of fans who are passionate about your music, but at the same time, it's quite a transactional thing. It's quite a socially intense experience.
Yeah.
Especially considering that some fans will be like on 11, whereas others will be chill.
Yeah.
So
And you're not quite sure who is walking towards you, I guess.
yeah, exactly. It's a bunch of strangers coming to you and asking for something.
Yeah.
And hopefully not being like horrible
Yeah.
or anything. It's one of the weirdest signing sessions I've ever been to.
Oh, I know
And
it's coming.
Yeah. I'm bringing it back.
And it is
Maiden.
related to Maiden. Yeah,
It is. It's very relevant. Is one of the signed items I own is Keepers of the Seven Keys Part 1 by Halloween, signed by Blaze Bailey, which I think was Bloodstock 2008, 2009, somewhere around there.
Yeah, because I was at that one at Halloween Rat.
Yeah, so Halloween we're doing a special guest slot, so that's the slot just below the headliner. And they had a signing session earlier in the day during the afternoon. I went into the signing tent, and I can't remember how many people are in Halloween at that point, 5 or 6. Anyway, all of them are there except singer Andy Derris. But at the end of the sort of signing table is Blaze Bailey instead of Andy Derris. So all of Halloween signed my copy of Keepers of the Seven Keys Part 1. And then it gets to Blaze Bailey. And I'm kind of thinking, well, you know, Andy's not here. Maybe he's ill, and maybe Blaze is stepping in for this set.
Because this is before the set's taken place.
This is before the set has happened. So I'm kind of thinking like, wow, what a sort of unique experience to have Blaze front Halloween and to get a signature of that temporary lineup of Halloween. So I just kind of hand him my copy of Keepers Part 1. Now, Blaze, I don't know why this was set up like this, but Blaze was clearly having his lunch as well. Like he was sat there with, if I remember correctly, like a container of chow mein or something, just trying to desperately have his lunch whilst doing the signing session with Halloween. He's quite friendly and nice, and he signs my Halloween album, which is very weird because when I see Halloween live a couple of hours later, Andy Derris, their singer, is on stage. He just clearly wasn't around for the signing session. So that leaves me with a very weird signed Halloween album.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably made it less valuable, let's be honest.
It's also like, I think it's
like signed by 4/5 of Halloween and Blaze Bailey.
And I think it's kind of unfair to Blaze because, like, I guess his signing session probably wasn't advertised and it was just bolted on to the end of like a Halloween session. So, like, I think he was there in another capacity playing solo, and they just kind of shoved him in there to just sign things, which
Poor Blaze.
there's probably like a good 50 people who have some Halloween memorabilia signed by Blaze Bailey from that day. But it's weird. I'll pop a picture up on the X account.
Yeah, the folks will want to see that. This is a nice segue into reviewing the album itself, perhaps, which is that this like signing record store tour that Bruce has done is sort of part of this really big PR campaign push for the Mandrake Project. It's been really cool, I think. When you think, I remember Tyranny of Souls coming out.
Yeah.
And it just sort of was dropped.
Oh, there was no fanfare.
Oh,
at
no.
all. Yeah.
It was like, here
there was
it
the
is.
video to Abduction.
Yeah.
And that was it.
And Bruce was on the cover of like Terrorizer magazine, I seem to remember. But it felt very much like, here it is. Bye. No tour. No, nothing. Just here's a record. Whereas this has been a really cool PR campaign and got the album to number 3 in the UK album charts. Did you see that?
I thought it got to number 1 in the UK album charts.
Oh, live fact check, Sam.
And do a live fact
I
check.
believe it got to number 3, but either way, that's a pretty mad statistic for a Bruce Dickinson solo album.
No, you're right. It's number 3 in the UK. It is 1 in Germany.
Well, yeah, of course it is, Sam. That's the Germans know what's what, don't they?
Yeah. But it is the first top 10 for a Bruce solo album in the UK.
I mean, to an extent, this just shows how bizarre the album charts are now.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, that's more of a testament to how much the record industry has changed in 20, 30 years, right? Like, the only people buying albums are Iron Maiden fans. So it's maybe not that surprising.
But still, you know, it's kind of a hell of an achievement, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. That's not to take anything away from it.
And it's just the whole PR campaign, you know, the Bruce Dickinson Instagram page I'm a big fan of, like some cool stuff going on over there.
Yeah, there's definitely a much more concerted effort to promote this album in a way that just Tyranny of Souls wasn't. And then I have no idea how any of the others were promoted, to be honest.
Well, I mean, they just didn't commercially do well at all, really.
Yeah.
Which is sort of preempting, when we get to Brave New World, how Bruce and Maiden end up back together. So, shall we go into the review of the record?
We shall.
So, just a tiny bit of background. This won't be the usual deep dive, but I have been listening to an awful lot of Bruce Dickinson interviews over the last couple of weeks.
Fair enough.
So, the Mandrake Project, this record has been, and I know this as a Maiden fan, because it was one of those stories that had come up every 1 to 2 years.
Yeah.
Bruce mentioned something about a solo album, but even I forgot how long he has been going on about this. 14 years.
Yeah.
This album has been in the works. So
a long time.
He started working on this before Iron Maiden were working on the Book of Souls album.
Wow.
That came out in 2016, I believe.
Yeah.
So this has been a long time in the offing, to the point where I never thought it would see the light of day, to be honest, because it was one of those things that Bruce was like, oh yeah, me and Royce have been trading a few ideas, goes quiet for a bit.
Yeah.
Then, another brief snippet in an interview. But yeah, so, and of course we've already, I've already, most Maiden fans, Sam, have already heard one of these songs, If Eternity Should Fail.
Yeah.
Here, Eternity Has Failed.
It's interesting that there's a slight title tweak.
Yeah, and there's a few other little lyrical tweaks I noticed as well. Not many.
I mean, I have to say, I still haven't heard the Maiden one. I kept on intending to listen to it. And
just
I
listen
forgot.
to the Book of Souls.
Well, we're going to get there.
We will, yeah.
So there's no point listening to it now.
Yeah, you got to keep something, you've got to keep it fresh, haven't you? Save
Exactly.
a few little surprises. But yeah, listening to Bruce talk about it, the intention was to record this before the Book of Souls.
Yeah.
But obviously that's when he had his throat cancer diagnosis and operation. That puts that on hold. And then having put that on hold, he's into the next Maiden studio album, Book of Souls. And so he's done that, the touring cycle for that. Then he's thinking, right, now's the time for that to get back to that studio record.
Yeah.
COVID.
Yeah.
Puts it back again, by which point Maiden is doing Senjutsu.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so here we are. So listening to him talk about these songs, we've got an odd mix of material, some of which is well over a decade old, but not all of it. So some of it is more recent. So it seems like every time Bruce has gone back to it, they've always added a little bit to it, including quite recently. So some of these songs have come together in the last 2-3 years. Some of them are, way, way old.
So what I'm not clear from interviews with Bruce is how recently is all the material not written but recorded? Because I guess it all sounds really cohesive and it all hangs together well. But as you say, a lot of these songs date back, say, 14 years. But is it a case of they only demoed them over that decade or so, and then did all the sort of final recordings in the last couple of years, or has it been just something they've chipped away at over the last decade?
Well, my understanding is most of the recordings happened quite recently.
Okay.
Because Bruce has put out some quite good little things on his YouTube channel, like showing him recording the stuff, and it's all quite recent. What does seem fairly recent, though, or relatively speaking recent, is the idea of this as a concept.
Yeah.
So he spoke about the concept seemed to come together during lockdown.
Oh, interesting.
And obviously a lot of these songs predated that, or at least the concept got developed during lockdown as a sort of the comic and everything else goes with it. Because I was a little bit, the comic thing, I was a bit like, oh, okay, that's a nice marketing bonus thing. But fair play to Bruce, hearing him being interviewed about it, he really invested a whole lot of time into the story that he originally envisaged as he was going to pitch this to Netflix.
Right.
And have this as a series. And he collaborated with, he sort of discussed this with directors, storyboarded the whole thing.
Yeah.
But someone advised him that, well, if you want to get this onto a streaming platform as a series, most of the things on streaming platforms come from comics now. So it was go for the comic idea first.
Sort of. I mean, with the greatest respect to Bruce's vision, I don't think anyone's going to be picking this up to turn it into a Netflix series anytime soon.
I haven't delved into the concept that deeply.
I've delved into it a
comic
bit, and I mean, to be honest, it's just not quite my jam. It seems very influenced by stuff like The Watchmen and like Alan Moore style graphic novels and comics. So that very British sci-fi / dystopia / sort of comic stuff, sort of mystical stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I'm not grabbed by it personally.
It's like Dr. Necropolis, and there's an Ice Queen.
I mean, the name Dr. Necropolis is very silly.
Well,
very Watchmen, and I'm fine with that.
When I heard him talking about it, I'm sure Bruce used the phrase either sex friend or sex partner, which I don't know why.
Sure.
Made me go, is that a word phrase people like a sex friend? Whoever the female character is, but what I admire about Bruce is just the commitment to it.
Yeah, he's gone full throttle to it. He's got proper comic book artists working through the comic version and stuff. Like it's not a half-hearted thing.
No,
by any stretch.
And it's not just like a shameless PR. Oh, by the way, there's a comic, and I hate to say this in the way that if it was Maiden, it would just be a bit like. I'll just get someone to do a comic to go with it.
Yeah. I think that's a really important distinction, actually. I think you're entirely right that this isn't what Maiden or a bunch of other bands would do, which is just an extra PR thing. It's an extra SKU to sell. It's an extra edition. This is very much a wholehearted multimedia vision, right? And I think whilst it's not entirely for me, I think what's nice about it is you can just pick and choose the bits that you're interested in. For me, the thing I'm interested in is the music.
And even if you're not immersed in the concept in terms of following it as a narrative of all the characters, I at the very least get the sense of, oh, I would know this is a concept album without being told that and without having to necessarily know what the story is. You feel like you're in a world, right?
I think there's a very strong sense of like theming and flow to the album that definitely comes from having that narrative thread.
Definitely. So should we talk about the music?
Yeah.
So, track 1.
Well,
oh, no.
I mean, I guess before we go into the whole into a track by track thing, do we want to share any general thoughts or
Oh, well yeah, okay, let's go for the general thoughts now. I think this is a really strong record.
Okay.
And I think it's a really interesting record. It's not necessarily the record you would, we might. The reviews have all been ecstatic, bordering on a little bit hyperbolic with the sort
they're pretty sycophantic.
9s and 10s out of 10s, and I'm not sure I'd go that far, but I'm not too far away. But if you were expecting Tyranny of Souls Part 2 or Chemical Wedding, or because the 3 previous Bruce Studio albums all fit perfectly together. They almost act as like a trilogy, thematically, stylistically. Accident of Birth, Chemical Wedding, Tyranny of Souls. Yeah, they're all pretty much great, straight up melodic heavy metal records. And this is an album that surprises you.
Yeah.
In places. And I like that. And this, in that respect, this has given me more than I thought it would. I was thinking, oh, cool, we're going to get another Tyranny of Souls type record of just great melodic heavy metal, a little bit more muscular and modern sounding than Maiden does, as is the Bruce way. But no, there are things in this that genuinely surprised me, and I've gone back to it and keep going back to it an awful lot.
Yeah, I find myself agreeing with a lot of that. I think, as you say, I think there's something. I don't agree with the 9s and 10s the album's getting. I don't think it's that caliber, but there was no way a Bruce Dickinson solo album releasing was going to get any heavy criticism just because of the way this stuff works, unfortunately. But whilst I don't think it's a mind-blowing album, I do think it is both a good album and a very interesting album, like you say. And I think you made the point that it's surprising considering the previous 3 albums, but I think one thing it carries from those albums, and one thing I really like about Bruce's solo work, is like this air of melancholy that Maiden stuff doesn't have. And I think Bruce does a really good job of that. And so I think that kind of comes across really nicely in the album. And then, yeah, like you say, there's a lot to kind of peel back and dig into. It is a bit surprising. And I think, to be honest, more than recent Maiden albums feel to me, this feels fun a lot of the time. Like we've been talking a lot about the comic book concept behind it, which, you know, like as sincere as that is, it's also a bit over the top and a bit ridiculous. And I think that's very knowingly done. But musically, like there's lots of unfashionable synths. There's very comic book sounding lyrics at points. It's not tongue in cheek or humorous, but it doesn't feel quite as, I don't know, quite as worthy as some of Maiden or Bruce's solo stuff can feel. Like there's a bit more, I guess, like dramatic joy to stuff here.
I see
which
where
I
you're
really
coming from
dig.
there.
Like it's a bit more playful,
Yeah.
I think. And then I guess like one of the things that really sticks out for me is, and you touched on it a little bit, is how it sounds sonically. You mentioned that like Bruce's stuff tends to go a bit heavier than Maiden, but also it's not just that Bruce's stuff goes heavier than Maiden. It's just produced in such a different way.
Yeah.
And
Roy Z is a producer.
Yeah, Roy Z's approach is completely different to
knows
the
his
modern
apples,
Maiden
doesn't he?
machine.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting hearing Bruce's voice on an album that feels like it has a relatively modern production style to it. His vocals, for instance, are just treated with so much more care than they are on recent Maiden albums.
He sounds better on this than anything Maiden have done since at least The Final Frontier.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also, I'll put this out there now. This is my favourite album that features Bruce Dickinson since The Final Frontier.
Yeah, I mean, that shouldn't be a surprise, if I'm honest.
You know, and I like Book of Souls.
Yeah.
I'm not mad for it, but I like Book of Souls.
Yeah, okay.
I've not said anything about Senjutsu, but I like Book of Souls. But this is still the favourite thing that Bruce has done since The Final Frontier.
But I think just having Bruce's voice not being treated as we kind of touched on in the X Factor episodes, Blazer's vocals get treated as completely dry and with very little post-production, very little delay or no delay or anything on them. And that's something that's happened to Bruce's voice in the Maiden context over the last few albums. So to hear his voice on this with, you know, just some of the bells and whistles that come with a modern studio, well, not even that modern, like just come with a recording environment, you have to treat the sound in a certain way to make it an enjoyable listen. And that's happened on the Mandrake Effect.
He does backing
project.
vocals and stuff as well.
Yeah, like there's harmonies,
it sounds glorious. Yeah, it's like the old days. Yeah.
Like I've heard it referred to as ear candy before, which is like all the things like backing vocals and harmonies and all those extra layers that kind of give your ears, they kind of sweeten up the music and give your ears something to latch onto beyond just the core and raw melodies and stuff. And this album has it. And I think on top of that, you then add in Roy Z's approach to guitar production, and it's just so much heavier.
And and on top of that, the sort of a more experimental approach to the instrumentation, which is kind of new to Bruce, right? Pianos, orchestration.
Yes and no.
Bongos.
Well, I mean, like stuff like Balls to Picasso has some of that experimentation on it, right?
Yeah, but not to the extent of this. Not the sort of luscious strings and...
No, there's definitely some new stuff here that's unexpected, and that's really nice. I guess the main thing I just wanted to touch on was overall that production approach is so vastly different to Maiden that it's so interesting hearing the same singer in two completely different contexts. And I don't know what's going on with Maiden, and we'll come on to this when we reach the albums, but that production approach that Maiden have is really not doing their music justice.
Well, it's definitely not doing Bruce's voice any justice, no. Because, he sounds great on this record, I think.
Yeah.
And I heard him speak in an interview about him talk about how his voice changes as he gets older and about him being able to do things now that he couldn't do before.
There's some really cool low grit on this album.
It really is, yeah. And, he's absolutely right in the sense that, I always, anytime you see the standard phrase, he's never sounded better, you think, well, but not sure about that. But there's definitely aspects of his voice he's harnessing this album
Yeah.
to much better effect than he does when he's sometimes really pushing for those high notes in some of the Maiden stuff where you think, I'm not sure that's where your voice, you can do it, sure, but it's not where your voice naturally sits.
He's really leaning into where his range has kind of settled in older age. Like, and that, I mean, again, part of it is down to Royce's songwriting. Like, he uses a lot of down-tuned guitars and everything is at a lower tuning in general. So that means Bruce's voice sits at a lower point as well.
I mean, and Bruce's songwriting as well, to be fair.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, but it just works really well.
Yeah. Right, should we go through the tracks?
Yeah, let's go through the tracks. I just wanted to put those cards on the table before we go through the tracks.
Very positive start.
They colour a lot of my views.
So, track 1, Afterglow of Ragnarok, which was the first... Do we call them singles anymore? I don't even know.
I guess singles.
The first song most of us heard.
Yeah. It had a video. So
It did have a video.
I guess it's a single. It had a terrible video, but it
couldn't
had
buy it on a CD in Woolworths, could I? So it's not a single in my eyes.
no, but this did get released as a physical single.
Oh, it did get released.
Yeah. It's like a 7-inch.
It did, it's a 7-inch. Yeah, fair.
With like the demo of
Of it,
the
yeah,
Eternity song.
Yeah.
That's not what it's called, but I can't remember which one it is.
But banger.
Yeah.
Bruce going full of monomath
Yeah.
at the end. With the sort of the almost, I'm not going to call it a death metal vocal style, but the afterglow.
Yeah.
It's like,
it's punchy.
wow. Yeah.
I think it's my main note for this is heavy and spooky.
Yes. Yeah.
And actually that spooky vibe like permeates a lot of the album.
Yeah,
And
we'll get back
I
to that,
really like it. And it has a really strong chorus that sort of like really melancholic guitar chords in the background of that sort of lilting Bruce vocal melody. It's great. I love it.
Yeah, super catchy chorus and just a lovely, chuggy, groovy Roy Z. I would strongly suspect that's a down-tuned riff to...
Yeah, it's got to be, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So what a great start. And I was very encouraged when I first heard that. I thought, ooh. But also not necessarily a fair reflection of the album we're going to get.
No, it's heavier than most of the album.
Yeah. And certainly heavier than track 2, Many Doors to Hell.
Yeah. So this song just sounds like Ghost to me.
Well, yeah. But the main riff, and Bruce acknowledged this in one of the interviews I saw, it's proper Scorpions, Rock You Like a Hurricane.
Sure.
It complete with even that effect, they put the drums like the...
But then you add like the slightly synthy, slightly reverby sonic aesthetic this album has, and it just sounds like Ghost.
Well, yes, but
that's not a bad thing.
No,
I love Ghost.
Of course not. Yeah, we both love Ghost, but I think Bruce is probably drawing from the same. He's not drawing on Ghost. He's drawing from
the same
influences
common
that
ancestor.
Ghost,
right?
but leading to
great
the same
song.
place.
Yeah.
Great chorus. I just and also just super fun, isn't it? And it's just the deliberate nods to Rock You Like a Hurricane with that particular drum effect.
Yeah,
that I always really appreciate.
But it's those big sort of cannon snare drum vibes.
And I'm not sure what you call it, but it sounds like a sort of a drum drag, but it's not as clearly a processed effect.
I think it's gated reverb on the snare drum that makes that sort of cannon vibe.
Thum, thum, and it sounds like a sort of slight delay.
Yeah, I think it's reverbing basically.
But yeah, proper like 70s hard rock territory, but super fun. And it's fair to say that like at this point, there isn't really much of a concept to the record yet. And I think I think Bruce himself said that when they were thinking about the first single, Bruce quite freely admitted that Afterglow of Ragnarok has really nothing to do with the concept of the album. It's almost like we have to wait a couple of tracks. It's like these were clearly the older songs before the concept came together. But then we get to the other song that we'd heard before, other than the Maiden version of Eternity Has Failed, Rain on the Graves.
Good song. I think it's fun. I really like the sort of storyteller verses and the big heavy riff, and again cheesy Ghost style synths.
The spooky. So great.
Yeah. It's a bit silly. It's a bit comic booky, but I love that stuff. I think this is a really fun track. And that's what I mean about this feeling a bit more playful than other Bruce stuff. Like some of this stuff is silly. I mean, and like I don't doubt it's sincerely delivered.
Yeah.
But it's ridiculous.
But you only
I
have to
love
watch the music video to Rain on the
Yeah,
Graves to see
exactly.
that. This is someone who's like having a little bit of fun here, right? This is
And that's what he should be doing,
yeah,
right?
of course. You know, you're Bruce Dickinson, enjoy life. But no, Rain on the Graves is really good. Interestingly, I heard one of the Bruce interviews, and he was talking about his inspirations for this album. He said to Royce, why don't we do a Fleetwood Mac song? But like sort of Peter Green era Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah.
So Oh Well or Green Man Alicia, where there's like, here's a bluesy lick and then vocal part, bluesy lick,
Yeah.
vocal part type call and response thing, which kind of makes sense. When
Yeah.
dun, 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 yeah. Good stuff. And then into Resurrection Men, track 4.
So I think this is you've had 3 sort of hard rocky songs that
Yeah.
draw a lot from 70s and 80s. This is probably the first sort of about turn on the album for me. Like I really like that spaghetti western style intro.
Yes.
That's really cool. Those delayed guitar leads and sort of rumbling acoustics are really nice.
Don't forget the bongo
And
sound.
then the bongo drums are really great and gives the song a bit of an otherworldly feel. And the song itself, stylistically, feels somewhere between Danish hard rockers DAD, who do a lot of like those spaghetti western style guitar leads, and Unto Others. Like it's got a sort of gothic atmosphere with that hard rock.
I mean,
vibe
it's
to it.
almost like Fields of the Nephilim, the 80s goth band, and that sort of dusty American goth vibe. Yeah.
And then it's got a really great soaring chorus with a huge hook to it. And then it all just goes like Black Sabbath.
Full
like Black Sabbath.
sabotage of a Black Sabbath. Yeah.
Just like a complete change. And it's like, this all works and hangs together really well.
And again, Royce's production, that Black Sabbath midsection, the bass tone, just the
Yeah.
oh, it's glorious.
There's so much warmth and depth to it. I love it.
And,
Really, really strong track.
and the sort of left turns keep coming with Fingers in the Wound.
Yeah.
Which is bordering on symphonic, almost Zeppelin-y kind of physical graffiti era, Kashmir type strings and very symphonic and orchestral.
Or, hear me out on this,
Okay.
21st century Manic Street Preachers for goths.
Wow, okay.
That sweeping orchestration has a really strong Manics vibe to me.
There is something about, I think, is it Dave Aringa, the Manics producer, who creates those really big reverby Phil Spector style string sounds.
But then like even maybe not so much lyrically, but even in terms of like the vocal melodies, I can just hear James Dean Bradfield. He's not a close personal friend. I can hear his voice singing them.
J-Dog.
J-Dog.
Jimbo.
Yeah. Like, I don't know, that... Yeah, something about this just gives me a really big Manics vibe.
Nice. No
But like
complaints here then.
really heavy Manics. But yeah, I think this is, for me, one of the biggest highlights on the album.
Interesting.
I love this song.
Because this was a grower for me. I was more intrigued by it initially, going, that's interesting, but wasn't sure if it grabbed me. But the more I go back to it, the more I appreciate it.
Yeah, I definitely didn't feel that way first time round. But after sitting with the album for a bit, every time the song comes on, it's just like, yes. Like those sweeping strings add so much dramatism, particularly as they return for that like really gnarly chorus.
Yeah.
It's like, put your fingers in the wounds. Like that bit is so great.
It's quite a visceral lyric, isn't it? Like,
it's
like
gross imagery.
Yeah. That's horrible.
But also like Bruce's snarl is really evocative. Like you haven't heard that kind of blood curdling kind of low range from him very often.
And I feel like if in the first couple of tracks the concept feels a bit ephemeral, like I feel very much into it by this point. Like I sort of feel, again, I'm not necessarily following every plot turn and character, but I feel like I'm very much in a world here.
There's an ebb and flow to stuff, right? And I just really like that dichotomy between those soft piano laden verses and that really heavy dramatic chorus. And then the middle 8 just goes really, it becomes just sinister world music.
Yeah.
Like it's sort of like a really Aggie Angra kind of vibe to me.
And again, it's really cool.
Angra meets Middle Eastern stereotypes.
Yeah, what they're doing with arrangements and stuff and experimenting in that way. Yeah, it is. It really does pay off in that song.
I've put in my notes here that this is maybe one of my favorite Bruce solo songs ever.
Wow.
I really love this song.
Well, let's see what you think about the next song. Not If Eternity Shall Fail, as I've known it for many years now, but Eternity Has Failed. Like, this makes sense as the most maidenish track. Like, this is the most maiden-esque track on the album, right? And it sort of makes sense why Steve Harris would listen to that and go, oh, that sounds like the sort of thing I want to open an iPod record. Yeah. What's weird about the Maiden version, though, is that they keep the spoken word bit at the end about, my name is Necropolis. It's on the Maiden version.
I really should check out the Maiden version.
I remember hearing that for the first time and going, this is absolutely bonkers, and love it. But obviously, in the context of a concept album about these characters, it makes
some sense. Yeah.
But just on a Maiden record, it's just sort of random spoken word bit. What do you think of it? Eternity Has Failed.
I think it's a really good song. It's a big epic. It's maybe not like my favorite song on the album, but there's a lot of juicy stuff in there. Not in the least, it has quite a big chorus to it. I think
just like a pelting Bruce vocal. Like,
really strong vocal.
Has failed.
Really strong vocal performance. But yeah, it's one of those songs, because it's also 8 minutes long.
Yeah.
That other than that chorus, I find it hard to remember much. I remember the intro, I remember the chorus. I think that intro is really interesting and a really cool tone setter. But yeah.
Got a nice fast-paced midsection as well.
Oh, yeah.
That's the dun 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 dun.
It's a good song. It's not my fave, but it's good.
See, I really like it, but I'll briefly, because as the only one who's heard both versions in this room, I will briefly comment on, my thoughts on the differences.
Please do.
Two. Bruce's version is a touch slower, but much, again, it comes back to the production, much chunkier and tighter. And also, there's some really stirring backing vocals so Bruce is in the sort of last reiteration of the For Eternity Has Failed chorus. Bruce in the background is doing some wonderful, there's like an bit that goes.
Yeah.
That's not in the Maiden version. And I just think, oh man, this is what you can do with a little bit of extra attention to production. So, I mean, just because, people want to know, Sam, at the moment, I'm calling it, they're both great, but the version on this album is my go-to version from this point on.
I'm not surprised to hear that. But having read the interviews with Bruce where he talks about the song and how it kind of gets co-opted for Maiden, I wonder, from Bruce's perspective, how he feels about the Maiden version, because these are quite different from what you're saying, and it sounds a bit like the Maiden version.
Yeah, I mean,
kind of doesn't fulfill the vision of the song.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, they're clearly recognizable as the same song.
Yeah,
don't get me wrong. There's no. I mean, Bruce says, "Oh, we reworked it for this album." I mean, he has to a bit, but to be honest, it just this version just feels like it's had a bit more care and time spent on it, and a bit more thought given to how we can bring out the best in it, and they've succeeded, really. When I first heard the Book of Souls, I thought, oh, this is a great opening. This is a really strong Maiden album opener. But yeah, this just feels like it's had a bit more time spent on it.
Interesting.
Really. Going on then to Mistress of Mercy.
I thought it was Mistress of Misery.
No, I'm looking at the track listing, Sam. It is Mistress of Mercy.
Wow, I have misread that multiple times.
And you're the one wearing glasses. Usually wear glasses. So.
Yes. For me, this is another big album highlight. I really love the song. It has big open chorus and those sort of motor-charged verses. Just a banger, really.
Good riff.
Yeah.
Good, chunky Roy's Head riffing. I mean, to be honest, the chorus of this, for me, doesn't quite fulfill the promise of the riff.
Boo.
Doesn't quite. It's I still like this song, but I just love that chunky riff. And but I'm just a bit it's all about that riff, isn't it? But it's still really good. This isn't actually one of my album highlights for me, but it's just very good. Now, I'm very keen to know what you think about Face in the Mirror.
I have such mixed feelings about Face in the Mirror.
Okay.
In that, I kind of love half of it. I think the chorus is kind of great in its simplicity, but also kind of stupid. that just repeating face in the mirror. But I think that is a really strong melody. But it just goes on forever.
Does it? It's not that long, is it?
No, it's not that long. But the fact that it feels like it drags when it's not a particularly long song is not a great indictment. For me, this is a slight turning point in the album. I think it's a good song, but it's not great.
Well, I really love Face in the Mirror.
Interesting.
To the point where if I'm feeling a bit tired or I've been drinking heavily, it can actually make me a little bit teary, Face in the Mirror. Like, I find it really emotionally affecting, like, in certain moments. I just think it's a really irresistible melody with some lovely piano. I mean, it's basically an acoustic song, isn't it?
Yeah.
And, you know, Bruce has a track record, particularly in his solo albums, of doing brilliant acoustic material.
As I say, I have mixed feelings to it. Sometimes I hear it and I think it's excellent, and sometimes I hear it and I think...
But this is one of those songs where I think Bruce in his 20s, Number of the Beast, Peace of Mind era Bruce, could not have pulled off Face in the Mirror.
No, absolutely not.
But
it needs that delicate vocal.
It does, and that depth. And there's something about a man of his age singing a song like that just... You know, reflecting on your life. And, you know, the lyrics are very on the nose in some respects. But,
Yeah.
I remember listening to this and just thinking, wow. And I think it might have been when we got back from the signing, actually, because I think I sort of stayed up. I might have had one more ill-advised beer and probably got about as far as Face in the Mirror.
Yeah.
Before I decided, I've got to go to bed now. Listening to Face in the Mirror, just going, yeah, I really like Face in the Mirror. This is interesting because I get a feeling this is where our opinions on this album are going to diverge quite massively.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Because this, you know, I spoke about this as being a really interesting album.
Yeah.
This is where it gets very interesting for me. With, well, let's go into Shadow of the Gods. Yeah? What's that humming about?
It is interesting.
Explain yourself.
Okay, so for me, this is where the album starts to drag. And you're right, it is a musically interesting song, but also it feels like there's a lot of meandering in the song to me. Like, it's moody and atmospheric, but I don't know. It just feels for ages it doesn't go anywhere. And by the time it does get into that quite cool heavy section.
And the heavy section, that riff is so Caius.
Yeah, very Caius. Yeah.
I love it.
And I think that bit's really fun. But yeah, it's too long. But I would say in the context of the album, it works, but taken as an individual track, I'm not into it.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. So yeah, and to be fair, I'm not sure. I totally get you there, because by that point, I'm so kind of in this album's world, I'm just quite happy to be swept along in it.
Yeah.
And I am still engaged in it. And then, yeah, it chucks in that really... I mean, it's basically the Green Machine by Caius riff.
Yeah.
But a little bit slower. And, yeah, I'm just really in the album's world at that point. And it feels like it almost morphs into this slightly transcendental, trippy thing. And I'm just totally happy to be swept along with it. Like, I really love it.
I'm not particularly engaged by it. I think it's not a reflection on the quality of the song. It's just, yeah, I think by this point in the album, I'm kind of like, I've had enough.
Okay. Disappointing, I think it's fair to say. Disappointing.
All right. Well, look, I think neither of us is surprised that my favorite things are the cheesy hard rock with gothic tendencies.
Going on to... Now, I've got a confession to make. Because of bloody... And of course, we both have this album on CD, because you had to buy it on CD too.
Yeah.
And we are CD apologists, let's be honest.
Yeah, although they are pointless.
They are utterly pointless, but we still buy the bastard things. But listening to this album largely on the digital streaming platform of your choice, I for some reason thought this Sonata brackets Immortal Beloved was a bonus track.
Oh,
And so the first two times I listened to Sam through, I just ignored it because a bit like the new Priest album, there's
which just has multiple
bonus tracks, and I'm always like, well, where does this album actually end? What
Yeah.
is the bonus? What isn't? Because on streaming platforms, it's not clear.
Yeah.
So I didn't listen to it the first 2 times around, and then I realised, oh no, this is actually the final
This is
song
part of
the
it.
album.
Yeah.
This 10-minute epic, and well, I'm gonna put my cards on the table. I think it's really cool, interesting storytelling. Do you know who comes to mind when I think of Sonata Immortal Beloved? Nick Cave.
Okay.
The spoken word parts, even the music, like it's proper. I was listening to. I'm trying to think of what the O'Malley's Bar. Do you know that song on the last song on Murder Ballads?
Yeah.
It's like 15 minutes long, and it's just Nick Cave.
And it's just Nick Cave ranting this weird narrated story of this horrible human being who gets into bar fights.
Yeah, and like murdering people in these horrible ways.
Yeah.
And it's just the same musical bed for about 14 minutes.
Yeah, but the difference is
change.
that like Nick Cave can pull that off.
Yeah, I don't know, but I think Bruce.
I do think O'Malley's Bar is too long. And, it gets really weird at multiple points, but there's something really.
It's got one of the best lyrics in music, though. Get the bleep button ready. Where it's like, I hit him with an ashtray as big as a fucking big brick.
But there's something like really sort of engrossing about Nick Cave telling this ridiculous story. Whereas I don't feel that way about this song.
I kind of do. My only gripe is that there's the line of like free the ice queen, and when I hear it, I just hear free the ice cream. I mean, maybe because my 2-year-old daughter's obsessed with ice cream at the moment, so I just
Free the
hear
ice cream. That's a message we could all get behind.
Cream. But no, I'm proper into it, and I really admire Bruce for just going, yeah, let's do it. Like this is like it feels like a real. But I think he pulls it off. You might not like it, but to me, he kind of pulls that world building songwriting.
I think that's fair. I don't like the song.
Okay.
I think it's a bit of a bum note to end the album on, personally. It kind of drags on, and I don't know. So similar to the previous song, these 2 songs together, I just find a lot of hard work as a listener.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean, to your point, like it. I think Bruce has done a really good effort of both catering to fans like me who basically want tattooed millionaire for goths, and catering to his own creative desires of trying to do something more big, more enigmatic. And these last 2 songs are both that. They're just, I don't know. They don't pull me in very much, and if anything, whilst they kind of work in the context of a narrative album or concept album, I'm just not particularly into them. And maybe they'll grow on me over time. But
Wow. Yeah, it's like divergence of opinion. The last 3 songs there.
yeah, I kind of think tracks 1 to 7 is a great time, and then you get to Face in the Mirror, and it's a still pretty good time. And if it ended there, I'd be pretty happy.
Oh, you see, I'm glad we have those last 2 songs, personally.
Yeah,
to me,
and look,
it's like...
it's a very subjective opinion.
Yeah. Well...
As someone who struggles to concentrate on music for an hour. So...
Well, shall we, apropos of nothing, because it's not going into any sort of...
It will not go into the official ranking,
No,
because that gets too complicated.
But shall we whack a number on it out of 10?
You first.
I'm going to go for an 8.5.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I think this is really good. And we'll maybe get to where we rank this within Bruce's overall solo discography.
Yeah.
But this is an 8.5 for me.
I'm slightly torn between a 7.5 and an 8.
Okay, not a million miles apart.
Yeah, not a million miles apart. I think there's a lot to really enjoy here. I guess if I think of the other albums I've given an 8, though, I don't think this is necessarily up there with them.
Okay.
But 7.5 also feels slightly low because I am really enjoying it. But then 7.5,
that's a really respectable.
That's a very good album. Yeah, I'd say.
That's still a very good album to me. So, yeah, I'm probably going to go 7.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where are we putting this in Bruce's? Ranking every single album. I mean, cards on the table.
I haven't heard every single album,
No.
so that doesn't help. I have heard most, though.
I have. This is, I would say, Bruce taking risks and experimenting. This is the best realised version of him actually taking those risks and pulling them off.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's a period, Balls to Picasso Skunk Works, where he's taking the risks and they don't always come off. Sometimes kind of yes, kind of no. Then we have 3 records of great traditional melodic heavy metal.
Yeah.
That are just great traditional melodic, albeit with a slightly modern tinged kind of heavy metal thing. And he kind of combines those 2 elements here
Yeah, I think that's
better
fair.
than he's ever done. This is so this is the most interesting Bruce Dickinson record, I think. In the most interesting and satisfying, not necessarily the best.
Yeah,
Right, but
I think if you say it's probably the most interesting and satisfying.
yeah.
It together, yes, it's probably not the most interesting. Full stop, though.
Yes,
that
or
makes sense.
yes, yeah, no, that's fair. But it's still, I mean, it's very much in the it's up there for the best of them for me.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it is the best. I have seen reviews saying this is the best Bruce Dickinson solo album. Well,
I don't agree with that.
But I wouldn't argue that. I wouldn't think that person was insane for saying that. It might not be the best, but it's up with the best.
So I think when it comes to legacy artists and musicians, there's a bit of a propensity to, I would argue, like overly highly rate new albums.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And a lot of that is because they're new, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure some of it is also you don't want to disrespect these sort of monumental artists who have achieved so much. You don't want to kind of be down on their new creative endeavors. But I think also there's a little bit of a sense, and it's definitely something I've felt whilst doing this podcast as a whole, is that as soon as you have something from a beloved artist that is new, it feels special because you've kind of resigned yourself to this feeling of, well, they've got these 10 albums from the 80s that I love, and I'm never going to recapture that feeling of listening to those albums again. And then you hear something new from that artist who's like, oh, wow, it's them and they're doing something new and I don't know it. And that's exciting. And then you kind of give stuff like 6 months. And have you ever come back to it? No, you've gone back to bloody Power Slave or whatever. So I do think, there's like almost a childlike excitement that comes with new material from old artists that doesn't really stand like the 6 months year test.
Yeah.
Right?
That's absolutely fair. But what's odd is that wasn't the case when Bruce's last solo album, Tyranny of Souls, came out.
No, that's true.
I remember that but that's probably more down to the way the music media has changed, because I remember that getting a lot of very sort of lukewarm 7 out of 10s and people going, well, this is nice until a new Maiden album comes along. And I listen to Tyranny of Souls still and go, this is a bloody brilliant, like 21st century melodic metal record. It's so,
then the
front to back is so good.
The context of that is that's 2006. Right?
Yeah.
So you've had A Matter of Life and Death come out.
No, you haven't. It came out before Matter of Life and Death.
Oh, did it?
Yeah,
I thought that was 2005 for some reason.
No, it definitely came out. I think they both came out the same year. Maybe Tyranny of Souls was 2000. No, sorry, Tyranny of Souls was 2005 because it was our GCSE year. Sorry, Tyranny of Souls 2005.
Okay.
So I remember listening to it whilst revising for GCSEs, like all cool 16-year-olds in South Wales in 2005. And then Matter of Life and Death came out the following year. Yes, that rings a bell now.
Okay, that makes sense. But then, so you would have still relatively recently had Dance of Death.
Yeah, 2003.
People are pretty happy with that. And then you knew A Matter of Life and Death was on the cards.
Way. Yeah.
So that context of Maiden still producing albums that broadly people are pretty happy with, and you're still in sort of the honeymoon era of this reunited version of Iron Maiden. Whereas now the context is Maiden have been quote unquote reunited for over for about 25 years. And their
and their pace
releases
of
are
recording has slowed down.
yeah, their releases are far, far more sporadic. And I think beyond that sort of newness appraisal I just mentioned, I would say they're not as well received overall.
Well, by the music press they are.
Yeah, but and I don't know. I think the music press isn't really allowed to say anything negative about them,
No, but
which
but
is
also
a problem in itself.
But it's interesting. The music press reaction to the new Bruce album has been universally positive. The online comment has been much more mixed. But I do
Yeah.
get quite annoyed by people going, "Oh, it's really boring." I was like, "No, you idiot!" Like, it's obviously not a boring record. Come on. I mean, it's boring if your idea of boring is it isn't just riffs all the time.
Like, if you want a boring record, I can recommend one to you. It's Virtual 11. I've been prepping for that.
Stay tuned for next episode.
Oh
folks.
my god!
Yeah,
Whoa,
it's coming.
that's a boring record.
But there are some people there who just, are like, "Mwah, I want Bruce to do heavy riffs and a chorus. Mwah, oh, what's this? Why is there a piano? Boo."
Yeah, yeah,
it's boring because
and
it
look,
doesn't sound like what I want, the thing to be.
I think it's interesting because I've got friends and acquaintances who have kind of been really dismissive of this album. And like,
Who are they? What are their phone numbers? I'm going to give them a
whereas
piece of
I'm
my
kind of in
mind.
the background like, oh geez guys, I think this is pretty great.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite Bruce album, but it's fun. And I mean, to be honest, part of it is different folks, different strokes. But I guess what I was saying about the newness thing, you have like an inverse thing where if you're not someone who's super excited about a legacy artist putting out something new, you're often, and not always, but you're often someone who, whenever a legacy artist puts out something new, you're kind of like, oh, well, this isn't as good as their previous stuff, and it doesn't sound particularly modern, and, my tastes have changed. Since I bought a number of beats.
They suck.
So this sucks. It's like, well, no, it's absolutely fine for something not to be you. And I think that's ultimately one of the things that's like always toxic about discussing art or music or any creative endeavor is like the way you express your opinion tends to be this thing is objectively bad as opposed to I'm not particularly into this thing.
Yeah. And that's fine.
And that's fine. Like, to be honest, there's loads of music out there that I'm not particularly into. I don't think it's objectively bad. Maybe some of it. But for the most part, I don't think it's objectively bad. It's just, it's not for me. And not everything is for me. And that's fine. Bruce Dickinson doesn't have to make albums for me. He's I assume a millionaire in his 60s, living a pretty great life in France somewhere, happily married to a new partner and stuff, making his ridiculous comic book album. And it just happens that I like that comic book album. It doesn't really matter if you don't like it.
Well, you say he's not making albums for us, Sam, but
I mean, this one's pretty geared for me.
We are credited in the acknowledgements. Specifically referring to his fellow maiden voyagers.
I know, but I really hope it's about us.
Not people on a maiden voyage, but maiden voyagers. I mean, Sam,
there's absolutely no way he knows about this podcast.
No, Sam, he absolutely definitely mentioned the podcast in the line notes to the album. So,
but he didn't reference the Twitter account. So what's the point?
No, we need to get onto him for that. Bruce, remember, like and subscribe. And at MaidenPod on Twitter next time. But cheers anyway, mate. Yeah. Should we quickly have a little final little recap looking forward to the tour?
Yeah. I mean, just to circle back.
Yeah.
My rant was a bit of a tangent. But yeah, I would put this in maybe my top 3 Bruce albums.
Oh, great.
But I haven't heard all of them. Okay. So
of the 3 you've heard, it's in the top 3.
I've heard more than 3.
Oh, there we go.
What have I got? I've got Tattooed Millionaire, Chemical Wedding, Accident of Birth. I know they're the other way around, and Mandrake Project. Okay, yeah. So
you've heard Balls to Picasso.
Oh, and Balls to Picasso,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, okay.
There
So
we
I
go.
know 5 albums, and I would maybe put this at number... Well, the thing is, I can't compare any of the albums to Tattooed Millionaire. Like, I quite love Tattooed Millionaire, but not because it's a great album, but just because I think it's really fun. But, I mean, there's no way it can be ranked. It's above ranking.
It's an unrankable
It
album.
is an unrankable album. It's sort of terrible and sort of majestic at the same time. But
Right.
yeah, I really like Mandrake Project.
Good. That's what we want.
Even if I'm giving it a 7.5,
really likes the
it's
Mandrake
a positive.
Project. It is good. So looking forward to the tour then. We don't have Roy Z for slightly confusing reasons. So
I mean-
Roy Z won't be playing guitar on this tour.
All the messaging around that seems very strange.
Yeah, and I'm not really sure.
Because it just kind of sounds like, oh yeah, Roy can't make it because he's remixing the rest of my albums.
Yeah, doing like
but-
Dolby Atmos sound mix of
It
Balls
feels
to
like he would have
Picasso. You're like,
considered
okay.
that before organising this tour and saying he was a touring member. So there's got to be something else going on. And I don't think there's anything nefarious going on. I just assume he's got some kind of life commitments that have come up that are unavoidable. And they're not talking about it because the man's entitled to his privacy.
Well, yeah, or for what's worth, my pure baseless speculation is that Roy Z now is primarily crafted a career as a producer.
Oh, yeah,
And
absolutely.
maybe he doesn't really fancy, he didn't quite appreciate how extensive the touring would be, and he quite
Yeah.
likes being at home and mixing albums, and
Yeah,
he's not really a touring musician anymore. I don't know. That's
maybe.
cards on the table, pure speculation. I don't know. But we do have 2 guitarists now.
Yeah, and this music needs 2 guitarists anyway.
Which is good, because otherwise the Thea was, well, they might have a lot of stuff on track or sound bit then. So that's something. And also Bruce has said the original, when they were putting together the set list,
I've seen this.
yeah, he was saying how, well, Roy's going to be with us, so it's going to be the Roy albums. And now Roy's not there. That maybe opens up the wider discography.
Although it sounds like it opens it up in favour of Skunk.
Yeah, it's
Works,
like, no,
and it
Bruce.
does. Just play
Play,
Tattooed Millionaire.
Millionaire.
Just the song. That's all I need.
but it does sound cool to the extent that Bruce is going, look, it's not going to be a massive production, so we can kind of mix the set list up, and that is exciting.
That is fun. I mean, it has a much more of like a less of a machine.
Yeah,
vibe
so
to it.
You know, it might be a case of what do you get on the night, and on his Instagram profile, the Bruce's team were put out a thing on their stories the other day going,
They've been asking for tracks from every album.
well, yeah, and what songs do you want from Tyranny of Souls? And I was going, all of them? Just play all of Tyranny of Souls, please. I would be so happy.
So if you could pick 3 songs to appear in the set list, what are your top tier
Okay,
songs?
well, I'm not going to play the songs I obviously think he's going to play.
Okay.
Okay, so I am going for... Can I have more than 3? Can I have 5?
Sure. I mean, it's arbitrary. Have as many as you want, except
Right.
don't bore me to death.
Okay, songs I would just... almost anything off Tyranny of Souls, I'd lose my mind, right? But
Okay.
I'm going to go for Dark Side of Aquarius,
Yeah, that's one of my dream songs.
title track Accident of Birth. I'm going to go for Trumpets of Jericho,
Okay.
Chemical Wedding, and also what's the other? I had another song in my mind I really wanted to hear from Chemical Wedding. I mean, the title track would be great for Chemical Wedding as well. I might come back to that other one.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I might go for. I mean, Tyranny of Souls go for Abduction, Kill Devil Hill, the title track, Soul Intruders. Any of those would be great. And to be honest, I would be happy seeing anything off the Mandrake Project. Like,
Yeah, fair.
any of those songs. I mean, earlier songs, I might go for Gods of War off Balls to Picasso. I think it's quite underrated, quite moody and atmospheric.
Yeah.
I mean, just the title track of Tattooed Millionaire, isn't it, really? There's a song off Chemical Wedding. I said Trumpets of Jericho. What's the other one? What's the second song off? The Tower. Yes,
Tower.
The Tower.
That's good, yeah.
I would really love to hear The Tower. Okay, your turn, Sam.
To be honest, I haven't thought about this as much as you. Obviously, Tattooed.
I've only been
Tattooed
thinking
Millionaire.
about this for 20 years.
So Tattooed Millionaire is up there.
Yeah, of
I
course.
just love that song, right? Ignoring Mandrake Project stuff, because he'll play plenty of that, I imagine.
Well, maybe not as much as you'd expect. He has said he's not going to like. He has said in interviews he appreciates people have not seen him live for a while. He's
Yeah.
not just going to like hurl the new album at you. It should be quite a retrospective set.
Yeah, fair enough. Dark Side of Aquarius.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think that's
Huge.
top tier Bruce track. I really love off the same album Arc of Space.
Oh, Arc of Space is great.
That's a really cool song.
That's really cool, yeah.
So that would probably be a wish list for me.
my heart.
And then I really like on Balls to Picasso, 1,000 Points of Light.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That's banger. And then obviously he'll play like Tears of the Dragon.
Yeah.
I'd be upset if he didn't. And then
I mean, Bruce said it's like the favourite song he's ever recorded of all time.
Yeah.
Recently, so, yeah.
and then the title track of Chemical Wedding, I think, is an absolute banger. So those are probably the big ones. One thing he won't play, which I would love to hear, but it is a recent discovery for me. No. So we mentioned when we talked about the Tattooed Millionaire thing that there's a version of Tattooed Millionaire that has 2 discs. And then the same with Balls to Picasso. There's a 2-disc version. I realized recently I have the 2-disc version and I've never listened to the second disc. And there's a lot of good stuff on that second disc. There's a lot of dross as well.
Yeah.
And so many versions of Tears of the Dragon. Too many versions. But there's a song on there called The Breeding House, which is just like a sort of Judas Priesty heavy song about Unit 731, which is like a Japanese medical experimentation center from World War II. Like lots of horrific body horror stuff happened there. But it's just a really good song. And that's been stuck in my head for the last week. So there's no way he would play that, but I really like that song.
If we're going deep cuts, I would also go from a song that showed up on the, like disc 2, I think, of the Best of Bruce Dickinson compilation from a while ago, called Silver Wings.
Oh, okay.
Which is just a flat out heavy metal banger.
Nice.
Again about planes. But it's
The dream.
Yeah, it is. It's what you want from Bruce. But lots to be looking forward to, though.
Yeah. I'm really excited for the gig. But also I'm tentatively excited because I have a baby due around then. So I might not make it.
Who knows?
We'll have to see how it goes. But fingers crossed I'm there. And then fingers crossed the baby comes.
Got to get yourself to Swansea, Sam.
Yeah, Swansea's not too far.
No, you can do it. Should we sign off there?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's
Cool.
probably
Well-
enough rambling about Bruce Dickinson.
Follow us on the X, the Twitter, @MaidenPod.
Or email us. Actually, don't email us.
Or email us.
No one
or-
checks the email account. So
No. Well, I don't even know what the password is, to be honest.
I think it's the same password we have for everything. But
Excellent.
I'm not going to say that on recording.
Send us some cash.
Don't send us cash. That's weird.
Well, okay, send me cash. That's fine.
Okay.
Have a lovely time.
If you enjoy the podcast, share it with someone else who enjoys Maiden too much.
Yeah, and like and subscribe.
And like and subscribe. Yeah.
Write a
Yeah.
review.
And also, actually, if you put any ratings on Spotify, because of the way the algorithm goes, please just give us 5 stars, even if you want to make.
Oh, obviously. What sort of prick is giving us anything less than 5 stars?
Some people do it, right? And understandably, if you were critically reviewing this podcast, I don't think it's a 5-star podcast, but for us to get any visibility whatsoever, just give us 5 stars, please.
Yeah, of course. And if you don't want to give us 5 stars, keep your terrible opinions to yourself.
Yeah, all that.
So it's got an aggressive note to end.
It's quite an
We
accurate.
love you all.
Thank you for the support.
Bye.
We put a lot of time into this. Bye.